Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an assortment of encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those are in the description as well. Now, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload. I was driving home from Brookings, Oregon on January 23rd, 2021. I was southbound on Highway 101, south of Gabberville, California, and south of Bend Bow Inn. The road makes a few turns, and the speed limit drops in the area. As I rounded a sweeping right turn, I saw a figure on the southbound shoulder of the highway. I was the only vehicle in the area at about 8:15 p.m. My speed was about 45-50 miles an hour as I passed this figure. The figure was lying on the shoulder of the road on its right side. I estimated the height to be about 7 feet. I was looking at the creature's back and I noticed it had broad shoulders and a thick torso shape. While the shape was similar to a human, it was not a human. It was not a bear either. I could see muscular features in its glutes and its head on its shoulders that was somewhat tapered toward the top and being held off the ground. The hair was a chocolate brown and very coarse. The hair was not like the fur of a bear at all. I turned around a distance past the spot and returned where I'd seen it. No other vehicles had gone north or south from the time I saw the creature to the time I returned to its location. An estimated 2 minutes had gone by. When I got to the spot where I had seen the creature was gone. As an avid hunter and fisherman, I spent a lot of time in the woods. I spent every summer camping in that area as well as a kid and never seen anything like what I saw that evening. Today's second part of the upload. I encountered something on my way to work early one morning years ago. At the time, we were living in eastern central Illinois, but I worked about an hour away from Lafayette, Indiana. This meant I was crossing from central to eastern time zone every morning. That, coupled with the 50-mile commute, meant I was leaving home around 6 a.m. every day. It was winter, but hadn't snowed yet that season. Thus, there was no salt on the road. It was probably the winter of '08, I think. I was running really late that morning, so I drove my '94 Miata that day to make up the time. About 4 miles out of town was a left turn onto another road that was slightly tighter than 90 degrees. Although there was a turn lane for cars coming from the opposite direction off the side road. Since the fields were bare and it was still dark, I knew no other cars were around. I cut the corner and took the turn lane the wrong direction. Just as I initiated the turn, my headlights picked up a shadowy figure that was standing along the inside of the corner. Expecting that it was a deer, I drifted a little wide. That caused me to cross the center line, which put me into some marbles, and the back end started to come around on me. This whole time, I'm still looking toward the inside of the corner, trying to make sure the deer wasn't going to come out and jump in front of me. However, as my headlights started to sweep around to the left, I saw something that at first looked like a large black trash bag along the edge of the road, or possibly something taller, just off the edge of the road in the ditch. But as my headlights continued to sweep it, I saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring back at me. Whatever it was, I couldn't make out any facial features or limbs. It was probably 6 to 7 feet tall, depending on whether it was on the shoulder or in the ditch. And I never saw it again. Today's third part of the upload. Okay, I'm going to tell you my encounter, but this was not with a Bigfoot. Haven't had the honor yet. I had returned from a trip one afternoon, thrown the bags in the house, took a nap, and took my little dog outside to water my plants because it had been really hot while I was gone and they were in some sad shape. So I'm watering the plants and filling the bird bath. I turn to the left and water a flower bed. I caught something on the access road to the back of the property in the corner of my eye. Turned back to the road and froze. Not 12 feet from me was a hairless, blue jean-colored canine with a low rump, long hairless tail hanging down, female, big bat-like ears on the side of a huge jaw, with a pointed snout and yellow, narrow eyes. It was about 30 inches high at the front, had a few really coarse hairs going from the shoulder area to the tail down the spine. It stopped and turned its head and just stared at me. It had no sores on it, its skin was shiny clean, and it had the prettiest little feet with short, shiny toenails on it. The things we noticed when we were shocked. It looked pregnant. Then I remembered my little dog was tied to my chair a few feet away. I panicked and squirted water at it. Ran, grabbed the dog, ran up the stairs to the house, grabbed my gun, was shaking, saying, oh my God, what do I do? Remembered my dad was out under his carport next door, in his 90s, on a walker. Made a run to his house while looking for the critter and didn't see it. Luckily, he was inside. So I made a round up and down the fence line and the critter was gone. Needless to say, for several weeks, I didn't leave the front door without being armed. That's what I saw, that's what I did, and that's what I know. Today's fourth part of the upload. I want to tell you about an experience I had a few years ago. It was June of 2006. I was exhausted due to it being finals week. I was working on earning my bachelor's degree, and I worked the evenings at FedEx. I was driving home after my shift ended, a little after 3 in the morning. I rolled down my windows to enjoy the cool breeze while listening to some oldies. I was getting off the I-210 in San Bernardino, getting close to the exit light. That's when I noticed a car stopped on the shoulder, and what appeared to be a very large man. I got closer and noticed its face. It wasn't a normal face. He or it looked inhuman. No ears, a weird nose, a pronounced brow, and the eyes that glowed bright when my headlights shone on him. I started becoming afraid, which is something I'm not used to. Also, I should note, I'm 6'3", and at the time I exercised a lot, wrestled and boxed. I'm not cocky, never was. But I grew up in rough areas in L.A. Fighting was just the norm. That said, I wanted to get away from there. I hit the gas pedal and almost crashed trying to get onto the freeway. Pulling over and calming myself down because I was shaking, I kept telling myself to calm down. I got angry and decided to go and help the stranded motorist. That's what I kept telling myself I saw. I grabbed a flashlight and a tire iron. And, just to be safe, my buck knife. I headed back to the vehicle and called out, anyone there? I checked out the car and the area. There were weird footprints in the dirt. They didn't look like shoe prints. There were handprints on the trunk. I say hand because the print really didn't look human. I started getting an awful feeling in my lower back and realized I was in a heightened state of alarm. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. I kept calling out, who's there? But I'll admit, I didn't want to find out or get the answer. I went back to my car and drove home. I didn't sleep for 3 days. My roommates thought I was having a psychotic episode, but when I told them what happened, they started freaking out. One thought it was a demon, another thought it was an alien, which I'm more inclined to believe. It's been over 10 years since this incident, and I'll be happy to never have another incident like it again. Today's fifth part of the upload. There's a very odd encounter from the town of Amaretto, Texas, which supposedly took place in 1970. In the encounter, the witness claims that he had moved into a ranch with his family surrounded by a desolate landscape of sand dunes and very little vegetation. For the first few days at their new home, nothing particularly strange happened. But it took a deep right turn into Bizarreville rather quickly. It started when the grandmother allegedly discovered a den of wolf cubs near the house. But when she brought the grandfather there the next day to show him her discovery, it was found that the adult wolves were dead and the cubs were nowhere to be seen. When the wolf carcasses were examined, it seemed as if they had been torn apart by something very large with formidable claws. And this, understandably, made them a bit weary as to what was roaming around out there in the wilds. The next evening, the grandfather had a nightmare in which he had a premonition of intense foreboding and a warning in his head to move away immediately. When he awoke in cold sweats, he went out to the outhouse. As he did so, he claimed he had seen a hulking humanoid figure with glowing red eyes, which seemed to be surveying the house from the dark. Interestingly, the witness's great-grandmother also had a premonition that night, and he would say of what happened next thus: "Early in the very night, my great-grandmother had a terrible feeling and sent my great-uncle, Ray, with the family to check up on his brother. Ray was almost to the house when the car ran out of water. He remembered there was a well nearby and went to get some water. He didn't get too far when the thing with red eyes came in front of him. He ran back to the car and told his family to run to his brother's house. He grabbed his shotgun and Bowie knife so he could buy his family some time to get away. Ray made sure the car was between him and the creature. The creature charged him quickly. He shot the creature, nearly point-blank range, several times with no effect. He tried to stab it, but almost got slashed by its claws. Then he ran as fast as he could to the house. The creature followed, but suddenly stopped short of the hill. By then, the entire family was awake and saw it on the hill staring at them. Grandfather told all the girls to get in the bed of the truck and covered them with lots of blankets and other stuff to make a barrier in case the creature jumped into the bed. The men were in the cab of the truck, staring at the hulking being. They drove past it, praying it did not attack them. Its gaze was on the house. Suddenly, it jumped off the hill and began to chase them. It stopped short of the line where the sand ended and the grass began. After this harrowing encounter, they went back the following day to get their things from the house, only to find the ranch owner and numerous police and military-looking people all over the area. On top of this, it appeared as the entire first floor of the home had been completely wrecked by something. This was all strange enough, but what really makes it even more surreal and off the wall is what happened when the police canine unit was released. And the report says of what transpired is a canine unit went in to investigate. The first floor was totally destroyed. The second floor was the same as well. The dogs got the scent of something and started to bark at the attic door. The officers opened the door and let the dogs up. Everybody heard the dogs fighting with something. Suddenly the dogs were thrown out the attic window like rag dolls. They were both skinned alive. The two officers went inside the attic to see what the hell it was. Everybody outside heard lots of gunfire, and then saw one of the officers being thrown out of the window. He was dead before he hit the ground. Then everybody looked back up toward the window. They saw the creature clear as day. It looked like a big, bald, blue-skinned man with big red eyes and sharp claws. The high-ranking military man ordered its destruction. Everybody opened fire on the house. Two guys threw grenades into the attic and exploded. The house was then set on fire. Grandfather and the family left, but later heard that only body found was that of the other officer. Footprints were found leading away from the house. Nothing of it was ever heard again of their knowledge. It is all completely and insanely bonkers, and leaves one to wonder just what the truth any of it has, and if it does, then what did they encounter? Today's sixth part of the upload. Jacqueline claims that she was on her way back to town of Cold Springs, Texas, after leaving her father's house in Houston, and that as she was passing Lake Livingston Dam at around 10 p.m., some decidedly weird events would unfold, of which she would say, "I was past the light into total darkness with only my headlights shining. I saw something ahead and slowed down. It was a furry creature on all fours, crossing the road. I'll never forget the way I felt. The hair on my arms are standing up, and I get goosebumps just remembering. It stopped just on the other side of my truck, passing a few feet in front of my truck. It was dark gray and black. It didn't seem to have a face, or maybe it just had too much hair. It was too big to be an animal or any kind of dog. I still don't know what it was. All I know is I drove off, speeding away, looking back in my rearview mirror, hoping it wasn't following me home. I locked up and stayed close to my rifle the whole night. And, to this day, driving through that stretch of road, hope I never see that creature again." Today's last part of the upload is a historical documented Dogman case in Texas. Converse, Texas, where during the 1800s a rancher moved onto a modest plot of land in the area along with his son. One day the rancher apparently sent his son off on a deer hunting trip, determined to toughen him up, as he was described as a rather frail and nerdy boy who liked to study and read all day, rather than grow out into the great outdoors. The boy found himself at a heavily forested area called Skull Crossing, and he disappeared into the woods for several hours. When he returned, he was without any kill, and his father was deeply disappointed in him. For his part, the boy claimed that he had been stalked through the woods by some sort of werewolf, and that this was one of the reasons he hadn't been able to hunt. But the father didn't believe him. He instead made his son turn right back around and go back and finish the job he started, despite the boy's pleas not to make him go. The young man once again ventured into the wilderness, and his father stood there waiting. The hours passed by and the sun began to set, bathing the woods in darkness, but the boy would not appear from the trees. The father grew worried, and he decided to call upon some other locals to go out and look for his son with him, fearful that something may have happened to him out there. As they fanned out into the increasingly murky forest, they probably thought they would find an inexperienced lad out wandering without a clue. But they soon would find out that something altogether more sinister had transpired. According to the tale, the search party came upon a monstrous hairy beast measuring 8 feet tall, which was described as looking like a cross between a wolf and a man, and which was more disturbingly still crouched down in the process of eating the dead son of the rancher. The party apparently shot at and chased off this monstrosity, which dispersed with supernatural speed, but the boy was dead, torn to shreds. After this, the story kind of gets a bit hazy, with some versions saying the rancher went insane and others saying that he locked himself away to wither and die, or that he had just killed himself. Whatever this thing was, we'll probably never know, and the Converse werewolf remains little more than a historical oddity. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm going to talk to Victor tonight, and I know he wants to talk to me about a couple different things. But I kind of want to talk to him about the next upload we're going to do. A lot of things transpired back in January that you guys were not made aware of, and so I kind of want to shine some light on that and on a video that I was talking about as well. So hopefully we can get that ball rolling. I might just a bit later to touch up on some old encounters shared. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. And with that, I'm going to bid y'all farewell and see ya!